Seriously.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the live stream. Tonight we will be talking about Life is a Test, which is a long-standing Islamic apologetic, basically to try and explain away every difficult question, as far as I can tell. You are very lucky tonight, ladies and gentlemen, because this is the first time I've managed to get on both Rob and Stopsamming. So I have the two of them here with me. So welcome to the show, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Cheers. Thanks. Good to be here.
Good evening.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. We have been on once before, but it's a long time ago. So it's great to be back with Pops and yourself.
Well, yeah, we did do a couple of
Drastic measures. It's okay. In our age, you tend to do these things.
Well, yeah, this is actually our third collaboration, all three of us, but one of them was on Rob's channel and the other one was a pre-recorded one, which I put out on my channel. So this is the first time all three of us are live here on Drastic Measures tonight. And we've got a great show for you people. We've got the Muslim Lantern, who I'm sure most of my audience will be familiar with. He's talking to a doubting Muslim lady, and we're going from we're close to half hour through this video, and there's some various other issues which I'm going to cover on another video review, which I'm going to do separately from this. But what we're covering tonight is the apologetic of Life as a Test. Now, Rob, you and I have talked about doing this in the past, haven't we? Because it does seem to be this kind of catch-all apologetic. Every time there's a tough question that comes up about morality or about the consequences of living in this difficult world, it seems to be this default of, yay, life is a test. You know, Alan knows best, life is a test. It's all part of that. And I find it very frustrating. Yeah, I know you probably share similar sentiments to that.
Yeah, I've got an argument against life as a test, so perhaps we'll get to that a bit later on. I think Stops has got some things to say on that too. So yeah, I think that's a terrible apologetic, and we'll get into that as it comes up.
Cool. All right. Well, unless you guys have got anything else, I think I'll just jump straight into the video. Just before we start, anyone in the audience, let us know if there's any problems with the sound, and yeah, if you want to post comments and questions, etc. I can't say we'll get to them right away, but maybe towards the end of the video I'll have a look through and see if there's anything we can address. But I think I'm just going to start now, and let's see what the Muslim Lantern has to say about life as a test.
You know, like, why doesn't he come to us to show us, like in a dream or something, like that he is there? Why did he only do that with Prophet Muhammad and he doesn't do it with everyone? Because that would be fair. If I would see him in a dream and if I would hear something in a dream, I would like it would be a lot easier to be a good Muslim than to trust someone that like lived a long time ago. Like that makes it so much harder for us as Muslims. If Allah loves us, why doesn't he give that same message to every single one of his creations?
Okay. First, I appreciate that.
I'm just going to stop it there to say, obviously, guys, whenever you want to cut in, just let me know and I'll stop the video. Did anyone want to respond just to her question as she's laid it, or shall I go straight to Muslim Lantern's response?
Well, it's a valid question. It's a valid question. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think if somebody's fair or equitable by most people's intuitive understanding, people are going to get an equal opportunity to get whatever, unless there's some overriding reason, which now presumably he's going to try and offer a reason for. So yeah, I think it's a intuitively good question, and most people would ask that question.
Yeah, I agree. So let's see what the Muslim Lantern has in response.
The sincerity, because a lot of people are not sincere. Even if they get the answers, they still argue for the sake of arguing. So I appreciate the sincerity. That's a very good thing. Now, when it comes to Allah Azza wa Jal coming to us, look, if I I don't mean this in a degrading way. Let me not use you as an example. Let me use someone else. If there is someone in my house and I say, come here, and he comes, and I say, go there, go. Who has more authority, me or him?
You,
me. So who is the master and who's the servant in this relationship? When I say, go over there, come here. Come, I want you to come, 3 o'clock when I'm sleeping.
Did you want to cut in there, Stops? I can hear you laughing already. I was about to.
This is so silly. My goodness. I mean, if I have my wife sitting there and I say, "Hey, come here, I want to show you something." Am I the boss or the master or a person of authority, or do I have any? This is ridiculous. If I just say to somebody, "Okay, can you come here? I want to show you," or whatever, it doesn't really matter. And if I tell them, "Okay, thanks, cheers, thanks for your help," and carry on, that's just it. There's no deeper meaning to it. How can he make this like a question of authority? I don't get it, really.
Yeah, I'd agree, and I would say it's pretty weak because it's not really addressing the question, is it? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter about the authority. Surely this is about it's going to cover a lot of areas, but one is the test fair? Is the test reasonable? Is the test something you can
warranted?
Do? Yeah, exactly. It's these kind of things which I don't think are affected by, oh, well, you've just been told it, so do what you're told kind of thing. I don't think that's a great answer.
I mean, I know where he's going. Okay, I understand fully what he's trying to do. If the mountain, if Muhammad doesn't come to the mountain and so on, we know this. That's obviously what he's going for. But it's silly.
Yeah, I agree. Let's spin on.
Come to me. Who's
Yeah,
the
you
master
are.
and who's the servant? So if we tell Allah to come, and Allah has to come to every single one of us when we want him to come to us, then it does not make any sense to say that Allah is the creator and he's the king and he's the master and we're the servants.
Can you hang on just a second? I want to add something which I find very weird. He is totally not addressing the entire context where this so-called God of Islam, this Allah, comes to us and says, "I want something from you." It's not me going to Allah and says, "I want something from you, come here." It is Allah wants something from me and then goes and hides. This is the point that she is addressing, because if this God wants something, he bloody well can come to me and say, "I want something from you, and this is how and why you have to do this." And this is what she's asking. Why isn't there something tangible? Okay, a dream is not really that tangible, but anything. And this is, I think, something that he's totally missing. That I am the recipient. I'm not the one who is aggressively addressing Allah. You need to do this. No. I'm just saying, listen, you want something from me. Can you substantiate that a bit? So I think it's the other way around somehow.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with what Stop says. Look, this whole thing is initiated by Allah, right? It's the idea that he wants you to worship him and do what he tells you and so forth, and then you get this reward. So it's initiated there. And if you're fair and loving and good and so forth, I think most people have a fairly similar intuitional idea there, that you're going to make the first move and you're going to do so in a way that seems fair and equitable to everybody. And if it appears to be unfair, now you need to give a very clear, a concise and substantial justification for why you do it one way for somebody and different for somebody else.
Exactly.
Oops, he's dropped off by mistake.
Yeah.
We're still here, but he's just dropped off there. So we can certainly keep it going. So I think this idea of, hey, if Allah had to come to everybody, somehow that's a problem. Well, you have to show how that's a problem, because of course he's all powerful. So he can appear to everybody simultaneously in any instant, and this would be trivially easy for him to do. So it's not like he's breaking a sweat, or it's impossible, or it's somehow difficult to do. So you have to give some other reason as to why this is somehow not something that we ought to expect from him. So yeah, I think
we can't watch the video. Rob, why don't you make good on your threat that you have an argument against this whole entire free will testing thing?
He's back again. There we go. Good job.
Because I think that is something, Rob. I think this is something that really people would be interested in hearing, because you get this so often by apologists. So I think this would be very interesting for people. So if we have a break or something, if Drastic decides to drop off again, then maybe do that, because this is brilliant.
Yeah, I apologize there, everyone. Can everyone hear me all right?
No, you're back. Okay.
Yes. Yes. Steve is saying in the chat they get the new Ali Dawa book. Well, that's a different thing. But I was going to say maybe get a new laptop or something. All you have to do is ask for Muslim contributions for anti-Dawa. I'm sure they'll come pouring in.
Yeah. I'll tell you what. I'll do my little bit of e-begging here. If anyone wants to donate to to update my technical equipment, or so I can build a mosque in Norway like Mohammed Hijab or something. Yeah, hit the donate button.
Support the anti-Dawa movement, right?
Yeah. I apologize, everyone. Let me see if I can get back to the spot we were
No
at.
problem.
Say that
What
Allah is
is
the
the
creator.
opposite of a mosque? A mosque.
Yeah. No, actually, don't get me started on that. I could do another hour complaining about that begging me do all the time. Let me just see if I can find the right.
So if we tell Allah to come, and Allah has to come to every single one of us when we want Him to come,
That's
to
good.
us, then it does not make any sense to say that Allah is the creator and He's.
Yeah, I think this is pretty much
That's
where
exactly where he was.
Exactly,
Yep, spot on.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just going to play and we'll carry on. I do apologize, everyone.
Yeah, go from there. No problem.
Right, let's go.
The king and He's the master and we're the servants. You flip the relationship now. It become that we are the one demanding God to do what we want Him to do. Show me this sign the way I want, or you're not there. So I'm now dictating to God what to do. So I'm the God in this relationship. He's not God because He's listening to my
Just
command.
stop it there, because you might have missed it earlier, Drastic. It's of course the other way around. God is saying, "Hey, I want a relationship with you," and the creators, the person, the creation is saying, "Okay, sure, but can you appear to me, or can you come present yourself in a relationship way that is appealing to me?" It's like anything in life, right? If you say to somebody, "I want to have a relationship, can I see you?" and they say, "No, you know what? You can hear me on the telephone, or I'll send you a letter." And you say, "No, I want to have a relationship face to face." No. But then they're saying to you, "I want that relationship." You're going to go, "Hang on a moment, that doesn't suit me," right? You want to have a relationship, there's certain criteria I have. You've made me this way, or I've come to be this way. Either you meet those criteria, or you don't really want a relationship. Or you're going to have to give me some other reason why you don't want to have a relationship in the way that I would like to do so. Simple, right? So it's not that we're God, but we are saying, hey, there's some criteria to have a relationship with us. And you, mighty Allah, are the one that wants us. We didn't, as Stop said, we didn't come to you and say we want a relationship. You said you want the relationship, and we're saying, no problem. We've got some criteria, some standards to have a relationship, like we do with every other sentient being in the world.
But the thing is, God should know this. I thought it's, this is an omniscient God, creator God. So while I was created, He surely knows what my expectation is, because He created me with that very expectation. So I don't get it.
Yeah, I agree. Right, I'm gonna play on, see what else he's got.
We are created by Allah Azza wa Jal. This life is a test. If Allah comes to everyone in a dream and shows him an undoubtable miracle of His existence that he can observe empirically, then there's no point of this life being a test for people. There's no life for.
Right, I've got to stop it there because I really think that is wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, the life is a test apologetic, as I've heard it many times. It's about it's not supposed to be, believe on bad evidence, which is basically all you've got if you've got the Quran and the Hadiths and the biographies of Muhammad. It's supposed to be whether you're going to worship Allah, whether you're going to follow the true path. Now, in my mind, knowing for a fact that Allah exists in the first place by having something like a personal visitation, whether it's in a dream or whatever, or some irrefutable miracle, that would actually help you do this test properly. Because then you would have you'd have confirmation he exists. So therefore, it would be, okay, are you going to follow or are you not going to follow? If you don't follow, you fail the test. I don't see how the test is invalidated by knowing that Allah exists.
Well, also, why is it a miracle? Why does He call the existence of His God a miracle as such? This I didn't understand.
Yeah, and it's also, where's the fairness? I mean, and it's not just Muhammad, is it? Anybody who has had some kind of visitation miracle, some kind of supernatural confirmation that this is all, certainly that Allah is real. Why is that deemed appropriate for some people and not for 99.99999% of the people who ever existed? And yet that is somehow equitable. That's somehow fair. I don't understand how that's supposed to work. I mean, it just seems completely unfair to me. But can you challenge Allah on this? Can you say, why did I get such an unfair test? I can't see what logical answer you could give to that. Why is someone deserving of a personal visitation? Because, and it's not just the prophets and stuff. I mean, I have heard occasionally Muslims say things like, oh, you know, I had a dream and I was visited by Allah. Okay, well, why did you get one? And the next 400 Muslims after you didn't get one. What made you so special? Why is it okay for you to have that and not everyone else? And which goes back to her original question, which I don't think he's answering.
Well, a chain of argumentation that I built up a couple of weeks ago is you have this God who has a desire, who has a wish, who has a message. So he creates humans, but he fails. So what he has to do now is he has to create different a different species of human that does have the message, that can, as a human being with the message, they can explain to the human beings without the message what the message is. But this fails. So now he has to go, and these were the messengers. Now he has to create prophets to go and explain to the messengers how to tell the people what the message is, so that the people then get the message, which this God couldn't implant right from the beginning. But this also fails. So what he has to do now, he has to take a book, he has to put this in writing, so that the prophets have something in writing that they can show the messengers, that the messengers can show to the people. But this also fails. So now what he has to do, he has to go and create scholars. So the scholars now are capable of interpreting the book that he sent, so that they can explain this to the prophets, to the messengers, to the people. And this fails again. So this is a total failure all the way down. Instead, a God putting the message in every single human being the way that an all-powerful, all-knowing, all-wise, all-whatever God should be able to do. But in my eyes, he's an incompetent, bumbling fool who is incapable of anything. And this is my line of reasoning where I say, come on, guys, get real.
Yeah.
Did you want to add anything, Rob, or should I move on?
We can carry on. I think what Stops pointed to there, of course, I wholeheartedly agree with. A, there's an interpretation problem, but B, this is certainly not by any stretch the best way that Allah can present himself. And if you're going to say that it's a test, we'll deal with that, I'm sure, during this video. But I think we'll very quickly see that this test isn't fair, and no Muslim lives according to what they claim the test is supposed to be, which I'll elaborate on later. I'll keep you.
But Rob, I'm disappointed in you. How can you agree with me? You normally always sense. No, but normally you always have something to say. Yeah, okay, the point is good, but, and then you start, and I like that. But okay, all right.
Yeah, we haven't done one.
Maybe we'll get there. Maybe we'll add something later on, but I can't disagree at the moment.
It's been a while. I'm sure once you get into your rhythm, you'll start taking Right, and actually, just I'll put one more thing in here as well, very quickly. The whole life as a test apologetic, it does have a lot of different dimensions. So while they're talking about life as a test in terms of whether you are going to follow Allah or believe in Allah, you've also got the other apologetics, like if anything bad happens to you, that's also, well, life is a test. You know, this is going to test whether you can endure tragedy or the loss of loved ones and all that. So it kind of has multiple dimensions to this, all of which I think are terrible in their arguments, but I think we'll kind of touch on that as we go along in the video.
For Allah to test us, and Allah saying those who believe in the unseen in the beginning of the Quran, chapter 2. There's no point. How can you believe in the unseen? You already seen it. This question of yours is already answered in the Quran. Allah says that if we send down upon them a sign from the sama, their necks will be tied to it. That means if they believe, or they will be punished, because they've already seen evidence now. No point. That's why when you look at the previous civilizations, when they had all of these big miracles that Allah has shown through the prophets, when they didn't believe, they were punished. Because now, that's it. You've seen the evidence now. You've seen a big miracle, empirical miracle. We're talking about empirical ones. You can see with your own eyes things happening which are supernatural. You still disbelieve, therefore you require punishment. So
yeah, I'm going to stop in there though, because this is kind of contradictory as well, because they consider the Quran to be another supernatural miracle, which is supposed to be for everybody else. So really, what he said is not true. We're supposed to be convinced, because this book cannot be written by any human hands. It has to be from the divine. And so therefore, this is the miracle left for the rest of humanity. So I think there's a contradiction. What you're saying, okay, it's not a booming voice from the sky or Jibril coming to visit you in a cave, but it is supposed to be something that is impossible to reproduce by human beings. So therefore, it is still a miracle. So to me, that's a complete contradiction.
Yeah, I think also what I understood there, and I could have missed it because I momentarily lost focus there, but it sounded like he was saying something like, hey, if he gives you this incontrovertible or like really straightforward, in your face miracle and you don't accept it, well, you're going to get punished. Well, the entailment of that is that if he doesn't give you that, you won't get punished. Now, if I do understand that correctly, and you guys can correct me if I sort of misunderstood that, then if you have very little evidence, the likelihood of you being punished is far reduced. So now you have on one hand, either you want to have overwhelming evidence, which if you reject, you'll get punished. But if you have overwhelming evidence, you're likely to believe and therefore not be punished. Or you're gonna go for very little evidence with the hope that, hey, there won't be much punishment because you didn't give me much evidence and therefore you aren't justified in punishing me. Now, I know what I would take, the overwhelming evidence. And if I choose not to take it, well, I'll take the consequences. But maybe some people will go, I'll hedge my bets. Give me as little evidence as possible, because then if I don't believe, I've got a huge justification. You didn't give me good evidence, so you can't punish me. Now, I don't know if that's what he was saying, but that it kind of sounded like it was going along those lines. But I think most people, and especially believers, are going to go, give me all the evidence you can. I'd rather have that so that I've got good reasons to believe. And if I were to leave it, then yes, I'll get punished. But I want the good reasons over and above everything else.
Well, yeah, I would agree with that, because it's like a risk-reward scenario, isn't it? It's basically saying that if it was fair, the less evidence you've got, the lesser punishment. Yet everybody is going to end up in hell if they don't believe. So in that scenario, why you would put your hand up and say, yes, I want the visitation from Jibril, because that's going to be, cast iron compared to a book which is poorly written, which it doesn't show any signs of divinity as far as I'm concerned, and as far as I'm sure you guys are concerned. Why is it, considering that you got the same punishment, eternal hellfire, that someone gets really convincing evidence and the rest just get this really dodgy book to look at? Stops, did you want to add anything, or should I skip on?
No, that's it. I mean, in the hadith, you see this, 99% or 99.9%, whatever, there's different versions of this, of the people end up in hell anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Right, I'm going to spin on and see his next.
This life is a test, and people are being tested. Therefore, it would not make any sense for Allah Azza wa Jal to come to every single individual. And there's no point in. Then why would Allah put you in this life to begin with? You just create.
Yeah, but would you say, therefore, there's no point for the people that do get that visitation, that do get that miracle? How comes it's still he's not invalidating their experience? What? Just because there's a smaller number? I don't get it. Either getting that visitation would make it pointless, or it doesn't. Why does the number of people matter?
Yeah,
I don't get.
I think the other thing.
What is the test?
Go ahead. No, you guys go first. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I just want to ask, what is the test? He says life is a test, but what are the criteria? What am I being tested for? What is the weighting process? What is the how do you count this? What is a perfect score? What is a bad score? As from what is the pass level? I'm not given any kind of information what I'm being tested on, what I'm being tested with, or I have no clue. And yet he's saying life is a test. I mean, as
I say, I think there are a few different levels to this. I mean, they will claim on the one hand that life is a test means that it's whether you're going to follow Allah's commands and worship him, essentially, because they say the whole point of life is to worship Allah. So therefore, that is.
But that's the human interpretation.
Yeah, but then they'll also flip it, as I say. I mean, he does this thing of where it's like, oh well, if you knew for sure, there'd be no point. So he seems to be suggesting that the actual test is to be convinced by really fucking terrible evidence. Now, if that is the test, exactly. That is a test of how gullible you are, surely, how stupid you are. Because I think it should for me to pass that test, it would be to say, yes, based on the probability of evidence, this book is definitely not from the divine. To me, that should be passing the test because it's such a weak, the Quran's such a weak book. But no, according to Life of the Testers, you've got this really limited, in my view, contradictory evidence, really bad evidence. And for you to pass is to say, yeah, I'm persuaded by this bullshit. Now, how does that make sense as a test? I don't.
In the Quran, it says the jinn and the humans are being created only for one reason, and that is to worship or pray to Allah. Okay. Now, it doesn't tell you how. It doesn't tell you what you're supposed to do when, in order to go and fulfill this. And if you don't, well, then you're sent to hell, which is eternal hellfire. Now, how does a jinn created from fire get punished by being in fire? None of this makes sense.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's another element to it as well. But I think this, to go back to what he's just said to the Muslim caller, though, I think this idea that the test is invalidated by you knowing that God exists or having some kind of really strong evidence like a visitation, I still don't see how that invalidates the test. I think this is a really bad apologetic for why, when people bring this up, this unfairness that some people get really strong evidence and the rest of the people get the Quran. I think it's just a bad apologetic to try and get around it. But what do you think, Rob?
Yeah, I think there's two parts to the test. One is that you've been given some instructions and you need to follow them. But the other part, and how well you follow them, right? But the other part is supposed to explain the seeming disparity in the world. Now, when Christians have got an answer, a bad answer by my lights, but they've got an answer, right? Original sin. That explains why there's this apparent unfairness, there's the apparent evils, all this sort of stuff in the world. Because Adam and Eve, misstepped, and because of that, everybody else is sort of a part of the sin, and that includes animals and everything else. Now, for Muslims, it's like, and I always give the example of the Uyghur Muslims in China, which I'm sure we could all agree is probably a travesty, right? That's kind of, maybe not quite, but not far off like some version of, the gulags or perhaps a slightly light version of the Holocaust with the Jews to whatever degree. They're not burning them necessarily, but I read an account of a woman that actually got out of there, and it was a harrowing account. She was tricked into going there. Now, she was a Muslim. She didn't even live in China, but she went there to finish some business because they said, hey, you've got to come and finish this. She went there. She ended up in the camp for 2 years and told the story, and it was pretty harrowing. I won't go through it now, but the point is that you have this, right? So on one hand, you've got the people that are suffering seemingly from every account that most humans would say in the Uyghur camps, right? The concentration type camps. On the other hand, you've got the tremendous wealth of the Saudis, for example, right? So you've got these two disparities, massive disparities between people. And what the test is supposed to do is give an explanation for this. It's supposed to say something like, look, those people that are suffering, they're not choosing to suffer, by the way. They're suffering against their will. If they could get away from that, presumably almost everybody would want to be like the Saudis, have $1 billion, be in the lap of luxury and so forth. So to answer this, they're going through a test. And because the more they suffer, the greater their reward. Now, I asked Muslims this specifically because it was exactly what Stop said right at the beginning. What is this test? Right? A, it's a test that you need to follow these commands and so forth so you can get to heaven. But B, under adversity as well. And it also explains the adversity and the difference in adversity. So the greater the adversity, the greater the reward. Now, most of us can go, okay, I understand that, right? If you go through more, you get a greater reward, and you can get through it and you still believe and all that sort of stuff. Great, you get a greater reward. But no Muslim lives this way. And this goes into the argument that I'm presenting, which is that if the test is supposed to be, and I actually asked them this up front, what does the test mean? And I think what it means here is that you're going through some negative consequences or negative experiences that you wouldn't choose yourself. Right? That's what the test is mostly. And the more this happens to you, the greater the reward in heaven. Now, I call it like a reverse Pascal's wager, because if that is actually the case, then every Muslim who is rational and logical should wish upon themselves and every other Muslim the greatest hardship that you can bear in this world. Because what that means is that you have a short amount of finite time with the greatest hardship that will give you the greatest eternal reward you can have. And it's exactly the opposite of the Pascal's wager that we are normally given. So you should then want for yourself, not go and kill yourself or do something, but go out there and make it as difficult as possible for yourself without overstepping the bounds of the Quran or whatever, and wish it on everybody else. And you should not pray for the well-being of other people, because their well-being, you have no idea what their well-being is. In fact, the Ungas, if the test is supposed to be this idea, they're getting the greatest reward of all. If that is the case, then a rational Muslim should put themselves into the concentration camp as well. Go, you know what, I'm going to go through that, because this is a short, finite life here. And the greater the test, i.e. the greater the hardship you go through, the greater the reward. Well, I'm going to get an eternal reward, and it's going to be far outweighed by the 10, 15, 50 years or 20 years or whatever I'm in the camps, and I would readily step up. Now, you should see what happens when I say this. They get all flummoxed. They just don't know what to say. Then they start really finding what the test is and stuff like that. But try it with them. Try it. Ask them what the test is first, and then point out that they shouldn't, in fact, be doing it. Because you want to elicit from them, which I think is the correct thing, is this is all about this hardship. And then the greater the hardship, the greater the reward. Get them to say those words or similar words to that, and then they're in trouble, because they live exactly the opposite. And in fact, every deed they do is exactly the opposite. Let's avoid as much hardship as we can and pray for everybody else to avoid as much hardship as we can. In other words, let's try and cheat the test to the best of our ability.
And also, Rob, I would tack on to that, bearing in mind that Muhammad himself had the easiest test of all, didn't he? Because he got the angel to come directly to him in the cave and put give him the Quranic verses over the next sort of 20 years or whatever. So that would suggest that Muhammad himself should be in like the lowest form of Islamic heaven, because he had it the easiest. Yet, what's the Islamic apologetic? No, Muhammad is like in the top echelon. He's got the biggest penthouse of all. He's got the biggest harem and everything else. So, based on that logic, again, I think there's a contradiction there. Muhammad has had the easiest time of it, but would any Muslim say that?
Yeah, you've got to just ask them what constitutes the test. Whichever way they go, it's going to be problematic. Yeah. But we'll see as it goes on.
And another element, in my eyes at least, is if you go and you say, okay, is there a test? Okay, if I pass or if I fail, is that something that was predetermined? Or, and this is my question, can I surprise Allah?
Well, yeah, and that is an area that we've covered on a previous live stream, the whole kind of free will and predetermination and stuff. But yeah, it's another element which makes it more complicated and even harder to make logical. But
exactly,
I don't want to go too far into that, because we have covered that in a
okay, no, it's just in my eyes, it's part and parcel of the whole testing thing.
No, I agree. It's valid. It's definitely valid. But I'm going to.
It's always like with the teacher. They always say, "Yeah, but the teacher can, the teacher can test you." Yeah, but the teacher didn't create you, and the teacher is not going to send you to hell or anything, and he doesn't know in advance how you're going to come out of this. So,
yeah, and you could always use that analogy, right? And say, look, if it were the case that the teacher gave a book to somebody that was clear and had all the answers in the book, and all they had to do was study it, and the other person they gave a book that either didn't have the answers, was in the language they didn't understand, or had lots of its pages missing. Now, if that person passed the test, do they get a greater reward? So run that analogy with them, and if they say yes to that, then it logically follows that that's the book that you want, because you're now going to get the greater the reward. All you have to do is make sure you pass the test, which in this case is continue to pray to Allah and stay firm to the belief through hardship. And the greater the hardship and the greater you stay with Allah, the greater the reward you're going to get. Unless you're scared of it, unless you actually don't think you can stay the course. Now, most Muslims are not going to want to say that. They're going to want to say, yes, I can stay it through thick and thin. I'm going to be true to Allah. Well, great. All you have to do is demonstrate that, right? Allah's ready to give you the reward. You just got to go to the concentration camp now in China, become one of its adherents there, and by your lights, you should get a far greater reward than where you sit and where whatever luxury you're in now as a Muslim. It's very likely way better than the concentration camps in China from the report that I had. There's almost no other Muslim, unless you're dying or you're being tortured at the moment, or you are starving to death, that's going to be much worse than the concentration camps in China. So all you have to do is demonstrate it. Go there. The equivalent of that.
Yeah, but as you say, Rob, I mean, how many Muslims actually live their life that way, looking for adversity, looking to put themselves into the hardest position? No, like every other rational human being, they're looking to improve their material circumstances. They're looking to stay out of harm's way, which is, as you say, it's contradictory to what this test would represent.
That's right.
But-
Yeah.
Look at the
Right,
reaction if you tell them, I am the test, so treat me accordingly.
Yes.
Right, I'm going to spin on because we've got quite a way to go yet. So let's see what else the Muslim lantern has to say.
You in the Sama, and you can see him, and that's it. There's no point of him putting you on earth to begin with if he wanted you to see him. And the prophets and messengers, they are communicating with Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah gives them revelation. That is the reason they communicate with Allah Azza wa Jal directly, is because they are used as agents to give the revelation, the guidance to us. And then the test is whether we will follow their guidance, the revelation that they brought, or we will choose our own desires and what we want to do and how we want to do it. This is a test. This is why we exist in this life. And if Allah Azza wa Jal were to appear to every single individual, that would be the most confusing anarchy that I've seen in my life. Like, imagine, look, Allah comes to me and he says that, for example, I'm the next messenger. And then Allah comes to you and he says, I'm not the next messenger. Who should we trust? You know?
Just stop it there.
Yeah, but no,
That's complete gibberish.
Yes,
Right? He hasn't
yeah.
motivated that. The idea is that it would be somehow inconsistent or unintelligible if Allah came to everybody. All he has to do is come with to everybody with exactly the same message. As long as he can communicate to them in a way that they can understand, because we're not all of the same cognitive ability, which is another issue that sort of Allah has to answer to. You get people with low cognitive ability, you know, what we might call retarded or whatever, up to people who are, you know, Einstein-type geniuses. So all he has to do is consistently send the same message to everybody, and he's done his job, right? Now people, if they have some level of free will, however you want to call it, now they have a choice, right? He's presented himself. He sent the same message as best he can. Of course, he knows best, to every single person in a fair way, that if there was this whole judgment thing, they wouldn't be able to stand and say, that person got a better deal than me, because he could show them, no, I communicated to you on the level that you are at, exactly the same as I did to that other person who was either not as good as you or better than you. And so here you can see the fairness. You've got no excuse. That's what he can do, but of course he doesn't.
Rob, but did you also notice what he did there? He completely twisted what she was asking, because she was saying, well, you know, why doesn't everyone get a visitation just to confirm that Allah is real? And he's twisted that to say, oh, well, it'll be total chaos, because if he came to you and said, well, you're a messenger, and he came to somebody else and said, well, you're a messenger, that will create chaos. Well, that's not what she said. She didn't say, should Allah come down and say everybody's a messenger? Just what she was saying is just to confirm that, yes, he's real in a kind of irrefutable way. So he's twisted it to something completely different, saying, oh, no, you come down and say everyone's a messenger. Well, yes, that would create chaos, but that's not what she was saying. So he's manipulated the question there to something which was not the intention. So I just thought I'd call that out, because it was kind of sneaky on his part. Stops, did you want to add anything, or should we?
I'm good.
Okay, let's go.
Every person comes and says, Allah said to me, give me your house, you know, give me the keys to your house. And the other person comes and says, no, Allah said, actually, do not give me the keys to your house. This it's going to become ridiculous to say that every single individual is going to have communication with Allah, and he's going to bring information from his own mind of his experience with the divine. Those prophets.
Well, again, all it is a visitation to confirm that Allah is real. Nothing else. He's adding on all these other conditions to it to make it seem like it's unreasonable. But is any of this outside of Allah's power? No. So I don't see why it's unreasonable. You know, why this is not a reasonable thing to do, to expect a visitation for everyone, perfectly within the creator of the universe's power.
Some messengers are selected for a reason, and that reason is because they are the best of their communities, and their job is just to deliver the revelation to the people. Then people take the revelation, follow the revelation, or they choose their desires and say it. There's no other way. فَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَجِيبُوا لَكَ, Allah says, if they don't respond to your message, فَاعْلَمْ أَنَّمَا يَتَّبِعُونَ أَهْوَاءَهُم, they know that they're following their desires. وَمَنْ أَضَلُّ مِمَّنِ اتَّبَعَ هَوَاهُ بِغَيْرِ هُدًى مِنَ اللَّهِ, who's more misguided than the one who follows his desires without any guidance from Allah? Who's more misguided? There's no one more misguided than this. Those people who believe they're apes, you know? This is the level of misguidance you will reach without.
Yeah, sorry, I just want to stop there, because he had to have a little dig at evolution there as well. If you noticed, he said, you know, those people who believe that they're apes. He's another one of these Dawa apologists who, like Sabor, thinks he's an evolution expert, doesn't understand anything about evolution at all, but confidently will say kind of this stupid thing. Sorry, I just want to point that out, because I find him quite frustrating when he does that.
Yeah, I think the other thing is, go ahead, Stops.
No, Rob, go.
Well, quickly, he's just made a claim here, right? That this would be sort of incoherent, inconsistent. It would be like chaotic or whatever. He's not justified that claim at all. So this is the other thing with fast talkers like this. that sound confident to the gullible ear. And of course, she's just listening, bless her, quite gullibly there, unfortunately, is to say, you made a claim, now defend that claim, right? He hasn't done that at all. Go ahead, Stops.
The funny thing is, he seems to have a misconception. He seems to think that if a god were to appear to a person to substantiate the existence of this god, then he seems to think that this makes this person a messenger or a prophet or something like that.
Yeah, good point. Good points. And that's not necessarily the case, because God isn't necessarily saying, hey, take my message and tell others. He's saying, hey, I've got a message for you. He's not saying that you have to then send that message on to everybody else. And if he appears to everybody, then everybody's got the same message, then they don't need to. All they can say is, hey, I've got this message. The other person goes, hey, I got exactly the same message. That's amazing. Hey, what did he say? Oh, he said exactly the same thing. Wow, that's amazing. That's it, right? Now you got confirmation from everybody else that you speak to that's got exactly the same message. That would be very powerful, I think. Of course, we've got nothing
this
like
is my expectation for some odd reason.
Yeah.
Well, Rob, I remember a thought experiment that you did. It wouldn't even need to be Allah visiting each person. He could just create some kind of like a monolith, like in the 2001 movie, where you've just got it's something that it's made out of a material that can't be penetrated by anything. It's got all the commands written down of Allah. It's there that everybody can see for all time. It's got this kind of supernatural character to it, and everybody can go and visit. So everybody's got that same level. So you wouldn't even need to sort of plant the message inside someone's head. You could just create this kind of supernatural monolith that could exist on Earth in perpetuity, and everyone could go there to get confirmation. Now, what would be wrong with that? I hope I'm kind of recalling how you said it. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I think that's way better than the Quran. But here what we're saying, because she asked about Allah appearing to everybody, I think that's probably the best way that I can conceive currently. I'm not saying there isn't a better way. That's probably the best way possible, is he appears, says the same message in their own language in a way that they can understand directly to them. And then you get confirmation when you start speaking to everybody else that got exactly the same message. That would be incredibly powerful. And I currently can't think of a better way of doing it. But that example that you gave is definitely way better than the Quran, because now you have this obelisk in the middle of Mecca that has Allah's original words. And when you go and touch this obelisk, it appears in your language in exactly the way that you understand it. There's no human interpretation, which, of course, as all of us know, having read all these different English interpretations, they're all different. And then the Muslims cherry pick and somebody else cherry picks. Here you get God's interpretation in your own language. Now, no Muslim is going to say, well, God couldn't send the message in every single language, crystal clear and better than any human possibly could. So now you have this original source. So now you can copy it and take it around the world. And if anybody questions it, they just come back to the source, and there the source says it exactly. They measure up what's been said in a copy of the book. They go, well, this book matches the source that God has that's indestructible and, that's going to live on for however long that humans are here. It's a perfect match. Boom, we're done. Right? Now we don't need the scholars. Now we don't need any of this stuff. Now we've got Allah's message directly to everybody in their own language. Way better than the Quran. But then I think the next best, or the best option that I can think of, is this method of simultaneous communication to every single human being in their own language at a level that they can understand.
Yeah,
because then they don't have to travel anywhere, right? And you could always have this monolith as a backup in case they forget or something. That's another way. But in terms of sending it directly to be very to be very persuasive to people, appearing to everybody simultaneously, that's going to be very persuasive, right? Even more so than a monolith.
Well, I think you came up with the monolith example as a way to address this response that Muslims will give it. Allah will have to keep coming, for each future generation, and why should he, the great creator, be summoned to every single person that's born, and that kind of thing. So I think you came up with it as a way to say, okay, well, look, you can just plant this obelisk there. Allah can just sit back after that. He just has to do it one time. It's there in perpetuity for every following generation. So I think that was the idea of that, to kind of get around that sort of response that I think I've heard Muslims give. But I would agree with you that just sending a direct message to everyone will be the most irrefutable way of confirming it.
But in chapter 14 of the Quran, it says that every nation gets their messenger and gets the message in their language. So there must have been a perfect translation for every nation at some stage. which has disappeared again. But this is my understanding
right.
of what it says.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 124,000 messengers, right? That nobody
There you
seems
go.
to
One
know
for
about.
each nation in their language. So if it's in their language, then it must have been the language that God sort of, I mean, Iceland probably got it in Icelandic and not in,
That's right.
in ancient Arabic.
And we should have examples around the world, and they all match up. When we do the translations, we go, wow, that message in Icelandic exactly the same as the one in Arabic, exactly the same as the one in Eskimo language or whatever it is. Wow, this message has been said to everybody, and it's identical once you do the translation. That's incredible. Of course, we get the exact opposite. Nobody else has got this message anywhere in the world.
Well, and that's the funny thing though, because in reality, what do we get? We get, oh well, if you translate the Quran from Arabic to English, then you're losing part of the message. You're not getting it because it's not in kind of God's chosen language, and therefore this is where all the misinterpretation comes from. So the actual apologetics comes out in the complete opposite way, which shows that this message obviously wasn't done very well because it doesn't seem to translate to other languages too effectively.
Yeah, but that's just privileging Arabic, and most people are not going to learn Arabic. Then the silly apologetics, well, you should learn it. Well, not everybody's going to. So the more hurdles you put in the way of people wanting to come to Allah, the less people are going to come. Does Allah want the most number of people to come to him? And if you say yes, and you say, but hang on, he's intentionally putting these hurdles, well, then I'm just going to go back to the test. Is it the case that the more hurdles he puts in, the better if you go through them all? Well, then you're saying that he hasn't put sufficient hurdles, because I can imagine a lot more hurdles than simply English to Arabic translation. Maybe you leave out some very important sentences that people have to appeal to their intuition or something like that. We can easily think of ways to test people even more than we currently have. So none of this will work. Whichever way they go, it's a catch-22 for these people.
Yeah.
Revelation, without guidance coming from Allah Azza wa Jalla. So it would not make any sense to say that Allah will come to people and whenever they want to become how they want evidence to appear, because this life is a test.
No, I get that. Yeah. But the thing is, like, why does he want to test us in that way? Like, he knows that we are going to suffer for the rest of our lives if we go to hell. Why, like, doesn't he love us? Like, why does he want us to suffer that way?
How do you go to? I'm not suffering. You're suffering. It's a different story. Huh?
Look, no, I know.
Just stop it there.
What an asinine response that
terrible.
was. I mean, that was pathetic to say. Oh, wow, because you're not
either
suffering
he misunderstands or he's being disingenuous, right?
Yeah, I just think that was...
he thinks I think I'm going to be charitable to this guy to the best of my ability. I know that may not be the best thing, but I try to be on occasions. What he's thinking there is that she means suffering now, but she said it there, suffering in hell. She's not saying necessarily now. But if God doesn't do this, people are going to suffer for an eternity in hell, is what she's saying. And the best I can get, if I'm super charitable, is he's misinterpreted to think that she is suffering now, and he's claiming he's not suffering now. Well, if he's not suffering now, then what sort of test is he going through? He's got a very weak test, and by those lights, he's going to have a very weak reward. So the rest of the Muslims, the Unga Muslims, can laugh at this guy when they're in the greater level of heaven, and this guy's down in the mud in the lower level if he's lucky, because he had this charity sits behind a mic and he's not having any suffering. Great. Well, his fellow Muslims are, and they're going to get the greater reward. So we'll see how much he's laughing and feeling good when he's down in the mud and they're up in their higher level of heaven, if such a place exists.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm asking now, right? So, but because you're assuming everyone's going to suffer his life, that's not the case. You only suffer when you choose to suffer.
Yeah, I think you're right. He did misunderstand that. You only
suffer when you choose to suffer. What sort of suffering is this guy talking about? Is he insane?
No,
they don't choose to suffer.
That is a complete contradiction. That is a complete contradiction to everything.
Standard understanding. It's the standard understanding. If you do not believe that Allah exists, you are intentionally covering up the truth. This is the kafir concept. This is how they go around and talk to people. You are intentionally doing this.
No, but Stops, he's talking about, he's not just talking about the non-believers. He's talking about Muslims in general, because I think Rob was right. He misunderstood what she was asking.
Yeah, it's the two things. But what his reply tells me is that he is just giving the standard reply that I've heard millions of times about the willful, intentional misunderstanding or rejection of the message.
Well, no, because I think he was.
Or maybe I got it wrong. It's also possible.
Well, as far as maybe you got it right, but as far as I caught that, I thought he was saying that he's misunderstood her talking about suffering in hell as
Right.
she was
Absolutely, yeah.
talking. She was talking about suffering in this life, because he did say, "Oh well, the suffering in this life." But then he's gone to say, "Well, you choose that suffering." Well, no, surely you don't. But it's the opposite. It's the life as a test is basically Allah puts this on you, and the test is, can you get through the suffering? Can you endure? Can you deal with this and still keep the faith? So surely
And
you're
that's it.
not choosing that for yourself. That is something that is a test that Allah's put on you, and the test is, how do you deal with it? You don't choose that suffering. So I don't know where he's gone to for that.
Well, he says it's free will. This is up to you. It's up to you whether you want to go through all the routines, all the different things that Allah wants you to do, or what the scholars tell you what Allah wants you to do. And if you don't do that, then it's your choice, and then it's your free will, and you are intentionally asking to be punished.
All we have to do is give him a counterexample. This is obvious nonsense. All we have to ask is, are the Uyghurs in the Chinese concentration camp suffering? Now, unless he's insane or he's completely dishonest, he's going to say yes. Then there's only one other question: are they choosing to be there? And the answer is no. They've been taken there, like the Jews were taken to the concentration camps and so forth, against their will. So A, they're not choosing to be there. B, they are suffering. So there we have a counterexample. There's tons of these, by the way, but there's an obvious one that everybody knows. So the claim that you choose to suffer is complete and utter nonsense.
Yeah, but he's talking about the test, I think.
Well,
But even still, they're not choosing to suffer, though. Those Muslims are suffering, and they're not choosing to. But his claim was that you only suffer when you choose to. That's what, if you rewind, that's the words that he used. But even in regards to the test, the Muslims aren't doing that. They're not choosing to suffer. In fact, almost no Muslim chooses to suffer. They avoid suffering like every other human being. That's why I say the test is inconsistent, because the test is the greater your suffering, the greater the reward. And they do the opposite.
In China, but the Uyghurs in China are not choosing to go to this concentration camp.
Correct. That's right.
Yeah, but the point is, he is saying you are willfully doing that. You are choosing not to go and comply with Allah's commands.
Well, I don't. Actually, I'll just say at this point. I mean, I think you can interpret this a few different ways. Can I just say, I think it's pronounced Uyghurs, isn't it? Uyghurs.
Okay, I know Uyghurs.
Maybe. Yeah,
I think we've all pronounced it differently. So maybe somebody else in the chat. Is it Ungas? Is it Uyghurs? Is it Uyghurs? Is it? I'm not sure. But I
think people know who we're talking about, right? The Chinese Muslims, let's call it. Yeah.
Well,
all right, let's carry on. I just thought that was a crazy statement he made there, but okay.
I agree.
How do you go to hellfire? Hellfire is a choice.
Yeah, but the test is really hard. He could have made the test easier.
Who said the test is really hard?
Because it's hard to believe.
No. It's hard to look at the universe and recognize there is a creator. It's hard. The fact is, you don't even need to. Okay, so step by step, let me take you step by step. The first step we already agree is completely easy, because even you don't need to even look at the universe. We know that children are born believing in a creator. Studies have mentioned multiple times about this. In Oxford University.
Stop it there.
And he's mentioned the Oxford study. I mean, how many times has this been lied about? As far as I'm concerned, that Barrett, it's the Barrett study, isn't it, Dr. Barrett?
Petrovich, the Fitra stuff,
yeah, and it's just for the audience who may not have heard this. That study does not say that children have like an innate belief in God. Essentially, from what I remember, it says that children will instinctively apply kind of godlike, maybe supernatural powers to their parents, because their parents they're seen as powerful beings, basically, because they've got control over them. They can do all these things which the children are subject to. So they instinctively kind of see them as kind of like maybe you could say godlike powers, but it doesn't. That study does not say that everybody has an instinctual belief in God. That's just an absolute fucking lie. I don't know. Maybe you guys will be able to explain that a bit better. But
I've done a couple of videos on this because you're partially right. The thing is that Barrett and Petrovich both say, we've done studies, and they conclusively show that children tend to believe in gods. Now, there is no such study. What has happened is that Barrett was involved in a study which showed that children, want to see a purpose in anything. In other words, if you ask them what is the purpose of the tree, well, they will say that a bird can sit on it, or that a dog can pee on it, or something like this. So this is I think the teleological approach that they have. The other thing is there are no studies in either from either person, from Barrett or from Petrovich, indicating any such thing. But we have counter studies where they show, and these are now real studies, okay, they are double blind, and they took children that have not been indoctrinated and compared them to children that were indoctrinated. And they show that if you have non-indoctrinated children, they do not go into that area, into that sort of line of thinking at all. Whereas the children that were indoctrinated, they tend to do what Rusty has just said, that they say that a God will know what is inside the box. And then they go and they say, well, because my parents told me, and my parents also know this. And then you get this link to the parents and the gods. But this is a complete mess. And this whole Fitra thing is I don't know, it's being repeated over and over and over. And I don't understand why. And Rob, I heard your reaction with a teleological argument. You'll have to correct me there.
No, you were correct on all of what you said there. I've actually got the quotes here because I, like Stops, looked this up as well with Barrett and Petrovich and so on.
Oh, okay.
And
then I have one sentence to add, Rob, because then the professor, the philosophy professor A.C. Grayling, came and called Barrett out and said, listen, what the fuck are you talking about? And then Barrett had to, backpedal and say, well, actually, I never said this. All I said is that there is a propensity for children to go in that direction. So
I've got the quote right here. Exactly. Stops has got a great memory. I've got the quote here. So as he quite rightly pointed out, A.C. Grayling took issue with this idea. And what Barrett responded with is to backpedal, as you quite rightly said. And here's the quote that Barrett himself, in an article, because A.C. Grayling had an article about this where he challenged these so-called propensities to believe in God, because the article is called Children of God. That was Barrett's original article. And then A.C. Grayling, posted this very scathing review of it. And Barrett responded, and here's the two-sentence quote. Quote, had Grayling attended the seminar as Brown did or read my book, Why Would Anybody Believe in God? He would know that I do not say that religion is hardwired or innate. Rather, the children have propensities to believe in gods because of how their minds naturally work. Now, to my mind, that's a big climb down from the claim that children believe in God. And the other thing to ask any Muslim who makes this claim, how do they define God? Right, because what will happen is the studies won't match their definition of God unless they've got such a nebulous definition that ultimately the universe could be God or something like that. So all you have to do is get them to define, how do you define God, right? And then show that it doesn't match this, right? Now, of course, they'll still dance around it if they're dishonest and stuff like that. Or if they're honest, they go, okay, that doesn't match up. Now, rarely do you get a Muslim that goes, actually, what I said and what Barrett said, they are not the same thing. So I can't continue using that. Most of them will obfuscate, or there'll be some rhetoric to try and hold on to these silly claims. But I've got other bits there, but I thought I'll just give the short version. The Stops is exactly right.
And on top of that, we can't forget the example where we have the Pinaha in South America who do not even have a concept of a god. They have this ancestor worship, but they don't even have a word for God in their language. So not everybody has this. It's absolute bullshit.
Yeah, that's right. And of course, there was a study on this by Daniel L. Everett, right? He was the guy that went out there as a Christian missionary, spent a good amount of time, learned their language, etc. Wrote a book, and he's got a response here to criticisms, the Paraha culture in Grabber, because there were people who were challenging this. I've actually got the article here as well on that. And he ended up becoming an atheist because they are simple questions, right? That beginning atheists would ask, and he didn't have sophisticated answers because he went out there to convert them and ended up becoming an atheist and wrote a book on it and stuff like that. And of course, what they do have, they believe in Mother Earth and they believe in animism, but in no way that if anybody is intellectually honest, could you ever say they believe in God? Unless God is just anything that's not human, which is, of course, not the claim, right? You just got to get people to define God. Once you do that, we can just demolish these silly claims very quickly. But you've got to define God. Otherwise, they're going to shift the goalposts. How do I know? Because they've done it to me multiple times.
No, thank you both for that very thorough explanation, because I did not do a good job myself there. So apology. See, this is why I need to get in, collaborations with Rob and Stops, because they can tidy up where I don't do a good explanation. So thank you for that, gentlemen. Should I spin on with the video?
Yeah. Go.
Yep, go ahead.
So we already born believing in Allah. And Allah said in the Quran that He's already put that. So that part, there's nothing hard about believing in a creator, because you're born innately with that belief. Second thing, establishing Islam as the truth. I've already given you evidences now that I've not come across a single person who's been able to refute it, or will never be anyone who's able to refute it. So,
yeah, I think just for the context, like I said at the start, we are close to where we started. We were close to half hour into this video, so the evidences that he was referring to, I think, was the earlier part of the video. Such evidences include a ridiculous string of miracle claims, so you can see the quality of the evidence is pretty poor. I will be going through that in a separate review at some point, hopefully next week, but this is what he's referring to, and it's garbage basically. But you just have to trust me for now until I do the review.
I did see it. Yeah, there was a whole string of claims that Stops and I would just giggle madly at, and we could easily refute. So yeah, I did see
Thank
that.
God I didn't watch the video.
That's right.
I mean, the thing is, I did talk to Rob about this before, and initially I suggested that we go from we address somebody's claims, but then I thought we'd probably need another 2 hours to go through it all anyway. So I thought we've got enough with the life as a testing. So let's carry on.
there's nothing hard to come to the conclusion that Islam is the truth if you actually done some research and you spent your time asking the correct people. Then there is no such thing as it's difficult to come to the conclusion that Islam is true. Now, on top of all of that, I would say that Allah Azza wa Jal is the most merciful with his creation. And it is the biggest act of ingratitude to claim that it's difficult. When Allah Azza wa Jal says...
Yeah, I mean, easy for him to say. As you point out, Rob, he's not the one in the concentration camp. He's not the one who's in a war zone or anything like that. Maybe if he was subject to some of the suffering that other Muslims are going through, he might not be so fucking nonchalant about saying this is just ingratitude. I just think that's amazing. It's amazing arrogance to say that.
Yeah, but how is his God merciful towards slaves and women?
Yeah, and apostates.
And homosexuals and come on, it's
and
crazy.
non-Muslims in general, yeah, and and blasphemers, and people who damage a Quran, and there's 1,000 categories. People who fornicate, so to speak. Yeah, it's.
By the way, okay, I swear this is just 30 seconds. There's a guy in Norway, an activist, who goes around and burns Qurans. He's Dutch, and he went up to Norway and did this there because they had some sort of celebration or something. So he did this, burnt the Quran, and then when they left, women in a car went and pushed him off the road, and the car was a total write-off. It's I don't know what happened. One woman was seriously injured, and 2 other passengers were injured. This is the level that people are going to just because burning the Quran for them is such a sacrilege.
Well, actually, it's funny you should mention that, Stops, because I did a review of Muhammad Hijab. Muhammad Hijab did a video about that, where he was basically laughing and smiling at the fact that they had, in my view, attempted murder, because that's what that seemed to
exactly
be.
The car rolls. I mean,
they literally ran them off the motorway going at high speed, and and Muhammad Hijab thought that was hilarious. So I did a video on that at the time, so I'm well aware of that incident. Yeah, it's appalling.
Sorry, I just thought I'd mention this when you said to Quran burners.
Yeah, no, let's carry on.
And that if you, or says to you generally, when you do a good deed, he gives you 10 times the reward. And when you do a bad deed, it's just one bad deed. If you have an intention to do a bad deed, but you don't do it, and you stop, Allah gives you a good deed. You were going to do something wrong, but you didn't do it, so Allah gives you hasana, gives you a good reward. Allah says that when you give sadaqah, when you give zakat or charity or any of these things, that He multiplies you until 700 and even more if He wills, if He wants. This is when you do good things. Now, and He's anything that He prohibited you from doing, He's given you a better alternative. Okay, don't have intercourse before marriage? He's allowed you to marry. He's given you an alternative. Okay, don't drink alcohol, drink juice, drink milk, drink.
Yeah, he didn't mention the alternative. You can also have sex slaves as well. He didn't throw that one in there, did he? Which I find is interesting. The alternative. Yeah, sorry, I'll carry on.
Can't drink water, drink anything else. This is not good for you, so don't drink it. So it is an act of mercy for him to tell you not to do these things because they're harmful for you. But to claim and
So
pretend
why
that this
don't you get
test is
alcohol?
difficult.
Why does this God create clouds of alcohol in the universe? Why does he help or tell people or show people how to make alcohol and then to say, no, you're not allowed to drink it? I mean, come on, that's feeble.
That's all the test stops. He's just testing you, isn't he?
Well, actually, I'll give you another example because
Tempting you.
I did a video on the Muslim Lantern just recently where he was talking to a ex-Muslim woman who is also gay, and he was bringing up this same thing of life as a test, and it's like, okay, so you've made homosexuality immoral, and the test is you've made somebody gay, so therefore they have to struggle their entire life
Yeah, exactly.
with this so-called immorality. Why make something immoral and then give somebody a propensity to want to engage in that moral behavior? That sounds like sadism to me. That sounds like a twisted kind of pleasure out of doing that. I mean, like there isn't enough challenges just getting through life anyway. You're now going to throw that in there? I mean, this is a trickster God. This is not a pleasant God in my mind. Anyways, let's carry on.
When you're literally getting 10 times your deed by doing one deed, you read the Quran, each letter is 10 hasanat. Each letter is 10 hasanat. And Allah says in the Quran, إِنَّ الْحَسَنَاتِ يُذْهِبْنَ السَّيِّئَاتِ. If you do good deeds, they remove bad deeds without you doing anything. So the minor sins that you do, just doing good deeds is enough for those minor sins to go away. All of them bad deeds that you do, how do you get rid of them? You just repent. You sincerely regret the action. You don't want to come back to it anymore. You make the intention, I'm not going to come back to this anymore. And you stop doing the action and you sincerely regret and you repent to Allah, you forgive it. What is hard about this? There is nothing easier than to follow what Allah Azza wa Jalla have told you to do. That's how the Prophet said in the deen is really the religion is easy. A man came to the Prophet.
But then this is the thing, though. If it's easy, then what is the test? Again, you're like it goes back to the point that we've been saying. The harder the test, the greater the reward. And yet at the same time, you're saying, no, this is all easy. So which is it? Is it more difficult or is it easy? He just seems to flip from one kind of apologetic to another, depending on how he's arguing it.
Allah is not asking you to fast every Monday and Thursday, to pray 24 hours. He's only giving you 5 prayers. And each prayer takes 2 to 3 minutes, 15 minutes of your day. You're going to pray.
No,
and
but
it is beneficial.
Following Islam isn't hard. Like, it's good. Like just like you said, don't drink alcohol. It's good. Like, I agree with everything that Islam like says about those things, right? Like, no alcohol, no sin. Following that is easy. The hard part is believing that something that, like, the logical part. I think the most thing that I'm struggling with is the logical part. But you explained it with that Prophet Muhammad saw things in the future, and that is something that makes me believe a bit more, because I'm like, okay, that is logical. Like, he wouldn't have known so many years ago. That helps. But
yeah, sorry, just to stop it there as well. Another part of the earlier video, he was doing, making all these claims about here Muhammad can do his prophecies and stuff like that and see the future. So again, it's incredibly bad apologetics, but because this woman is naive and I think desperate to believe, she's persuaded by these arguments, but they are all piss poor as well. I just thought I'd point out.
But she's making a good point, because what I call the Islam virus is that Islam behaves like a virus in your brain. And what it does is it actively blocks logical, rational, and critical thinking. And if those 3 don't exist, then Islam has a chance. But as soon as you activate them, Islam does not stand a chance. It will immediately die as soon as you apply either, any one of the 3, whether it's logical, rational, or critical. Critical is the worst. And it's gone. It's immediately. It's like an antidote.
Yeah, I totally agree.
For example, like, for me, it's really hard to just like be like, how do we not know that like, it would be so easier for me to be like like 100% if Allah just like even sent like a little angel to me just to give a small little message, that would make it so much easier to believe 100%.
You
You know?
honestly, look, you're just now we're going back in a circle now because we already dealt with this point. And initially, you're exactly saying what the same disbelievers said to the prophets. You're saying the exact same thing. They said, وَقَالُوا لَوْلَا يُكَلِّمُنَا اللَّهُ أَوْ تَأْتِينَا آيَةٌ. They said, why would not Allah speak to us or a sign come to us? You know, the same thing exactly you're saying is you're repeating the same things as those believers said. Then Allah said, He says, قَدْ بَيَّنَّا الْآيَةِ. We made the signs clear to people who believe. You look how you.
Yeah, but the point is, they're obviously not clear enough, are they? That's the point. I mean, you're saying, you know, oh yeah, we've you know, given the clear signs to the people to believe. Well, why are 80% of people not Muslim? Why is the conversion rate to Islam so poor? I mean, as much as the Dawa apologists will all claim that thousands and millions of people are converting, we know they're not. So clearly the signs are pretty rubbish. So I think she's completely reasonable to say, I want something a bit more concrete than what you're giving me. And his response is just to say, oh, no, the signs are clear enough. Well,
to a believer, they are, yeah, but not if you're not a believer.
Yeah, well, but even to the believers, though, Stops, as she is. I mean, there are just so many who doubt it. Once you actually put, like you're saying, the logical and critical analysis to the claims of Islam, it does start to fall apart. And many, which is why I think there is this avalanche of apostasy, particularly with the age of the internet, where you can just so easily access powerful arguments against it. And
but he's lost. He is completely lost.
All he's got in response to say the signs are clear. I mean,
Arabic. That's when you know he is completely lost. He doesn't know what to say.
Wow. Absolutely.
This is for him like a magic incantation when he starts speaking Arabic. And instead of addressing her questions, instead of realizing she is asking the same thing twice, that means she didn't understand it. So instead of addressing this and saying, oh, okay, let me try a different approach, different way, he tells her, no, you silly cow, you don't understand it because you're not believing enough. If you were to believe more than you believe now, in other words, if your faith would take over, then it would be clear to you. And this is the stupid irrationality of Islam.
Well, it's the opposite to logic or something concrete.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Washed away an evidence which is 100%, it should give you certainty. Like, for example, you made one, I may give you multiple evidence, but you focused on one, for example, is the idea of knowing the future. I was saying that makes me believe a little bit more. Okay, you explain to me, how is it possible, if it was not 100% the case, if it's not 100% true, how is it possible for Prophet Muhammad ﷺ to know this information? Give me now the logical alternative. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't have the answer to that because I trust that is like special what he did.
Not special.
What exactly did he do there? Stop there for a second.
Yeah, I think
this is supposed to be prophecies.
Yeah, he's referring back to this. Apparently, Muhammad had knowledge of the future, and we know the kind of things. I mean, you guys have done many debunks of this. You know, right. Arabs building tall buildings is supposed to be one, and all these pathetic claims. You know,
I did one actually, Drastic. Sorry to interrupt you. I did one once because I sort of chat on Clubhouse or Discord. I did one once there. This guy came on and tried this. And actually, I had people come on afterwards. The first thing I do is show me the verse. Because what they're going to do is they're going to paraphrase the verse. All I do is I say, give me the verse. If I'm on my phone or if I'm on the computer, I just bring up Sai International, Yusuf Ali, Mohammed Pikthal, just bring up 3, and I read all 3 for 2 reasons. 1, so I can see if they're cherry picking, and 2, to show the audience and everybody who's listening that there's multiple interpretations. And then we go ahead from there and we just ask some questions. People came up afterwards and they said, Rob, you did an amazing job there of debunking this claim about prophecies and so forth. And Stops has got a list, and he should send it to me again. Every now and again, I forget them. And he's got a list of criteria that need to be met for some sort of prophecy to appear to be, like extraordinary or miraculous, whatever the case may be. And it's just so poor, it doesn't remotely get there. It's mostly vague. It doesn't have the timed outcome, etc. So, of course, but people like this young fella here who are a bit brainwashed, they've got to have a low standard. So they're going to claim it is. But all we have to do is show how much better these prophecies could have been, but we just read it out and show where it's vague, it's not timed, or whatever other critique we're going to have of it. And people who are listening, who are not very hoodwinked like Muslims currently are, because they obviously committed to believing it. And these were Christians, by the way, came and said that was amazing, right? They believe in miracles, but they could even hear it themselves, how poor these sort of miracle / prophecies are supposed to be when you read them from the Quran.
Oh yeah, and another review I did about a month ago, I did a couple of parts of, I don't know if you're aware of this debate that Mohammed Hijab and Hamza Swartz had in South Africa with these two South African. Yeah. Did you remember? Did you say
that was amazing?
Well, I mean,
terrible, wasn't it?
I did Mohammed Hijab's opening statement, which is just one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life, and he spends half of it just listing off these miracle claims. And yeah, I just took them down. They're all vague in the way that you're talking about, or it's basically open-ended. It's this could happen between now and to the end of days. It's just ridiculous things. He also, but there was one new one he came up with. He said the hadiths predicted Muhammad predicted the obesity epidemic in the world. And yeah, and I was like, oh, this is going to be great. And then he didn't even give the hadith. This was how bad it was. So he's obviously he just got to the point where he was throwing claims out there without putting the hadith, because the hadith was obviously so bad, like even by the low standards they normally operate from, he wouldn't even give it in the in the opening statement. But I didn't even bother trying to find it, because I just thought it's probably going to be something as asinine as Muhammad saw a fat cow and said this is a sign of the future, or something stupid like that. It's going to be that bad. So yeah, I mean, they're appalling, these prophecy claims. But yeah, anyways, sorry, that was a long way round. He basically just to what Muslim Lantern was referring to when he was talking to the lady there. Should I skip on and we'll see what he's got left?
Yeah, special is not. This is revelation from God. If you make a claim, it is not revelation. This is my argument now. If you say, because if you're saying it's not 100% and it's just a little bit more, it should be 100% already. But you're saying it's a little bit more, it's not 100%. Then where is that doubt coming from? Now you give me the alternative, the other explanation that you have that you can provide, in which he got this information from, that is not from God, that no one else in history was able to do, but only him.
Yeah, but like the thing is, like maybe he just really knew science really good. Okay, that could be a thing.
Again, we didn't just talk about natural phenomena, and how would he know science from where? Where is he going to learn it? No one at the time knew this information that I'm telling you. Where is he going to get it from? Well,
I mean, I don't want to go too much into this, but we've done all this. I mean, it's going to be things like the embryology stuff, which is wrong, and claims about waves under the ocean, all this kind of stuff. But not only are they really bad, but I really hate it when they say, oh, where's he going to get this knowledge from? Well, first of all, the knowledge is either wrong or really basic. Secondly, he's supposed to be a trader. So, of course, he's going to come into contact with all these people where he could get the knowledge of the day. They act as if he was just sitting in a cave his entire life and never spoke to anyone. So this apologetics is really stupid, but I'll carry on.
We learned science from where? There was no universities at the time. There was no Irish Thailand and those people teaching at universities or something. There was no such thing. He was living in the deserts of Arabia. And most of the things that the Greeks believed were false. So where did they learn that science from? If he went to learn from the Greeks, he would learn that the earth is flat, the human being.
Right, that's actually wrong. It was there was an ancient Greek guy,
Eratosthenes.
That's the one who actually not only did he talk about round earth, but apparently he measured it to within a really. It'd be like the level of accuracy was astounding. Basically, with like a couple of sticks, I think, didn't he? He managed to predict the circumference of the Earth. So, and that was
not predict. He calculated it.
Calculated, and it was within. It was really accurate.
A couple of 1,000 kilometers.
Yeah, and this was at least 1,500 years before Muhammad was around. So
this is not the point. The thing is, she is asking for something completely different. I don't know what level he is on. He's not listening. He is on his standard script, on his apologetic script, and he doesn't care what she is actually asking, what she's after. She is after something tangible. She's after some sort of a confirmation that she is missing, and he is going off on a tangent and talking about miracles and talking about prophecies. That's not what she wants. She doesn't want some bloke writing about Muhammad 300, 400, 500 years after the fact. She is looking for some actual, real evidence. She's looking for something that she can hang on to and say, aha, so there is something real. And he's not delivering that. He's just, I don't know what the hell is wrong with this guy.
Well, I think it is as well. And to bring it back round to the larger issue of life as a test, excuse me, I think he realizes that he can't give a good answer to what on the face of it is clearly an unfair element to life as a test, that some people get this really solid evidence, supposedly with the miracle visitations, etc. And some people just have to rely on the Quran and the Hadiths and the Islamic scripture. So because he can't really give a great answer, he's going to keep returning to this plugging away on, oh, but Muhammad knew, he had all these all this prophecy stuff. So this should be enough for you. Focus on this, because I can't really justify the whole life as a test, which is inherently unfair. So I think this is why he keeps kind of spinning to this, because he's got no real answer on the actual life as a test thing. Rob, you've been a bit quiet. Did you want to?
I'm all good if you can hear me. That's fine. No, I think you guys have covered that well.
Okay, all right, we'll spin on. We've just got another minute or two of this, so let's see.
No problem.
The baby is formed like a small baby in the human beings, and then it grows like this, or a half of it is formed, and then the other half is formed. He would learn all of this false information the Greeks used to believe. So where did he learn?
Yeah, sorry, just on that, he got the false information on embryology from Galen, didn't he? So it's ironic that he would say that, yet Muhammad copied that false information and passed it on as if it was correct. So the irony of that.
No, actually, if you want to be precise on this, what you find in the Quran is just a representation of Greek medicine, where the stages that this nutfa, alaka, mukta, these stages are copied from Galen. That's the only thing, and they correspond one to one. But in general, it's just the understanding of Greek medicine, the way that they sort of knew this in the 4th and 5th century.
Yeah.
That science from? And I didn't only mention science. I told you he said things we will be doing today. How is that related to learning science or not learning science? He's telling you what the actions that we will be doing. He's talking about how what will happen to things which are in the economy, in the society, like interest and usury and these things. How would he know any of this?
I don't know.
Okay, so when you claim it is not 100%, you talk about rationality and how you're being rational. Then you need to give me a
he's blaming her. What an idiot. How can he blame her for not... I can't believe this. What she's doing
I'd actually like to debate this guy. Informally, not like formally with opening statements and stuff, but it's a shame we can't get this guy on Clubhouse or onto Discord and stuff like this, so that we could deal with this fellow, I think. Either one of us or multiple of us or whatever. Because he's young, maybe he can get out of this bad ideas. Maybe not, though. I think when you're very young, you think you know it all, and most of us thought that when we were younger as well. But he's awfully deluded and very certain, and that combination is always a dangerous combination.
Well, Rob, the problem is one of the people in the chat, Isan, he's got a channel called Evolution Facts. Very, very good channel. Anyone who's not seen it, go check it out. He does counter Dawa videos, particularly on science, and he's done some stuff on Muslim Lantern. But the Muslim Lantern does live streams, but he doesn't keep them up. Basically, I think it's just for their members. So you can go on there, but you won't have a record, and then he'll only put up clips which make him, well, I don't even think they make him look good, but anything which he fucks up on, he won't put it up on YouTube. And Isan, the gentleman I was just talking about, who has been commenting in the chat, he did actually record one of them where he had gone on to his live stream. He actually recorded it himself and showed that this guy, he's just completely out of his depth. So you could probably get onto his channel, Rob, but I think if you wanted to capture that, you would have to be recording it yourself, because if he faced you, I'm sure you'd take him apart in minutes, and it would never see the light of day on YouTube. So you'd have to record it.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll spin on
idea. If he was not a messenger of God, you should have another explanation. And if there is no other explanation, then it is 100% a fact that he is a messenger of God, and this is a revelation, and this is evidence. And then it's not hard as you claim.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. So look.
Okay.
Yeah. Look.
No,
just
but this
think about-
helped. This
Yes.
helped.
Yeah, that's fine. That's all right. Just think about what we said, inshallah. Unless you got any other questions, just think about what we said. Really, like just sleep on it, as they say in in English. They tell you just sleep, and next day ponder on the information, think about it, and then you'll understand the points I'm making to you. Because the fact is, I know if you have any rational sense, if you have any common sense, you cannot reject. I cannot convince myself Islam is not the truth, even if I try, even if the best
You're just not
argumentative
trying
person,
enough.
even
Yeah, I think. How much more have you got there? Because now
I
is
think
this
it's
just the
about-
wrap-up part?
Yeah, it's about another 30 seconds, I think. I mean, we can
Oh,
kind
okay,
of end it
cool.
there if you want, or do you
No,
want?
no,
me
you
to-
can finish off. You can finish off. I just don't think he's trying hard enough. He's got a very low standard. If you've got a low standard, that standard's always going to be met, and then you can pat yourself on the back and say, "Look, I can't debunk Islam." I think if this fella just raised his standards, and we could help do that with him. But I think obviously Muslims are typically motivated, hugely motivated reasoners. But I think if he was intellectually honest, we could help him raise that standard, and we could show him how. All you have to do is think about it and use a little bit more critical thinking that you're currently used to doing, and you can quickly see how either false it is or how poor the claims are that you make. You just because you hear yourself and you don't have much pushback in a way that gets you to think, you keep believing it, right? And I think that's the thing that we need to help this fellow overcome. I don't know whether he can though, but there's always a hope.
Exactly. I don't think he can. But what he can do, or what he could do, is give her good advice. And that is go to the gin and tonic show and ask the guys there.
Yeah, well, I mean, and just go anywhere. I mean, this guy does exist in an echo chamber of absolutely epic proportions. As I say, I mean, he won't even put out the bits where he gets properly challenged. They'll never see the light of day. So I think in a way he's correct that he would never be able to be convinced out of it, because he's not actually interested in any kind of honest argument, as far as I can see. He's basically just wants to repeat the same Dawa apologetics that we've heard from 1,000 guys just like him before.
Yeah, standard MO. Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Shall I just play the last 30 seconds? I don't see
Yeah,
there's
go ahead.
Let's just do it for the sake of finishing it.
if all of the atheists gather around me and they try to give me information, it's not going to affect me, because they're not going to be able to. There is no other rational explanations that you can provide to respond to the points that I made. The only rational explanation is that he was a messenger of God. And that's why all of these other religions, the best they can do is to try to attack the Prophet did this, that. They don't never attack the source of Islam. They never attack the Quran, the information within the Quran, the evidence.
I mean, this is a joke. Sorry to say that no one ever attacks the Quran. I mean, I have done just myself on my tiny little corner of YouTube. I have done multiple videos on him alone attacking the claims that he's made in the Quran. So this is absolutely. I mean, he is deluded if he thinks that people were just like making, vague or weak claims about the character of Muhammad or something. I mean, yeah. I mean, this is how deluded this guy is.
And dishonest.
Sorry, I'm just going to put up. Thank you for the donation, Nick. Good work that you're doing, folk. The 2 brain cells could not vibrate fast enough to generate a single spark of intelligence. Yeah, I think we're all sort of feeling that way. It is a test. I mean, life is a test. Listening to the Muslim Lantern, quite frankly, but. Yeah, thank you for the donation. Sorry, Stops. Did you want to say something?
No. I just wanted to say, Nick, you need to contact this poor lady and tell her to come over.
Yeah,
Because that was the one thing I was going to say, if I may, Drastic, is after something like this, I'd go to her and say, look, here were your questions. Can you recite back to me or replay back to me what you thought was very helpful? Because she said it was very helpful. But if you ask her specifically what was helpful and why do you think it's helpful, I think she would battle to answer that. And if she did answer it, we could go, well, hang on a moment. Here's how it's unhelpful. And I think we could quickly disabuse her that anything helpful was said here. There were lots of claims made. They weren't substantiated. And this young fellow obviously hasn't spoken to enough critics or taken their critique on board and just closed his ears and kept repeating. That's one tactic that some of these apologists use. I don't know whether he's one of them or not, but whatever critique they pretend like they've never heard it, or that it hasn't, that they answer with some lame response and then claim nobody's ever given a critique. But that's what I would do with this lady if we could sort of get hold of her, see what she
Rob,
thought was helpful and why.
Rob, how many videos do you think there are on YouTube which all have the same title? 10 questions atheists can never answer.
Yeah,
And yet they've all
That's
been
right.
answered 10,000 times. Yeah. Right. I think there's literally 5 seconds left. Let me just play this last bit.
Pieces of Islam that we put forward, because they cannot refute
Yeah,
these
that's
things.
true.
They cannot refute these things. They have to rely on other things to try to pretend that Islam is not the truth and live in their delusion, thinking that the religion is the truth.
the
Yeah,
irony.
that's true.
Yeah, I mean, we have to rely on other things like reality and facts and the
It's
inherent
just the irony
contradiction.
of this fellow saying this is it's just,
Yeah.
have a look in the mirror, stop and engage your brain a little bit more, and then come back here. The fact that you think that this is irrefutable just shows, unfortunately, how deluded this young fellow is. And I'm hopeful that somebody like this could maybe get out of it. Maybe I'm being too charitable there, but who knows? But I think once you get into this and you've seen, right, I think that's the other thing. You want to continue doing it, right? Because if you were to give this up, look at all of what happens. So I think when you become an apologist, that kind of cements your dogmatism, because everybody is either worshiping you or hating you. The haters, you just say, are just being ignorant, or they can't refute you, and the worshippers just give you more ammunition or fuel to keep going. So I think these guys are highly motivated, and it's very unlikely that you could change their mind. And even if you showed them something in straightforward English that a child could understand, they would find a way to just not accept it.
Sorry to just say, I just wanted to address this. Isan, the guy I was talking about before, he says that he's tried to meet him in his stall in London, but he's never there. Is this guy actually based in London? I didn't realise that. I thought he was in America or maybe somewhere in the Middle East, but he's actually in London. So another one of these guys based in London. What is it about London that produces these unbelievably stupid people? I just... Again, sorry to for the international audience. I apologise on behalf of the UK for inflicting these guys over and over again on you. It seems like we're the epicenter of this Dawa delusion. I can't. Yeah,
Have I told you about the IERA branch in Austria?
I think you might have mentioned it before, but if you want to mention it again, if you go ahead.
Because you've got this group in Austria. Who are copying everything that IERA does. They wear their T-shirts, they have their arguments, they are selling their books, they are doing everything that IERA is doing. And they have the same format of everything. And of course, I'm blocked there. I've never, ever been allowed to go on there. And I even opened up a so-called analysis channel, because I was too afraid of losing my normal channel, because they give you copyright claims and all sorts of stuff. So I opened a new channel only to analyze these guys, and I took them to the cleaners. And then one day they let me in on the new channel which I opened, and what happened is they said, "Oh yeah, you are here. Why don't you come and talk to us? You don't have to open your analysis channel. I mean, just come and talk to us." You know what they wanted? They wanted me to go into their stream so that they have my channel name, so that they can click on it and ban me and block me.
Yeah,
because I was on there 5 seconds and I was chucked out and I could not get back on there.
So it's consistent across the board then, no matter what.
Same story, same thing.
Yeah.
But the thing is that this Austrian group is under scrutiny of the, what is it, anti-terrorism and intelligence, whatever branch. They have, by court order, been prohibited prohibited from doing any kind of public appearances in Vienna. By the court in Vienna, they have been prohibited. Now they have to go to Germany and near the border there and put up stalls and then do their bullshit over there, because they're not allowed to do this in Austria.
Yeah, for those that don't know, Stopsamming currently is teaching the entire German-speaking world about Islam. He's got a channel. He goes on I'm not sure. Do you own a channel, the Atheismus TV, or is it somebody else?
The Atheism TV is an initiative. The thing is, I did not want to do the same thing as I did with the gin and tonic. Really, I'm tired of this. So I gave it to Torge, and then we developed this. Okay, so he is the official owner. He's the moderator. and I'm just the deliverer of infos. And now we have more and more people joining in. We've got a doctor, we've got a musician, we've got all sorts of people which are now on the team permanently every Thursday. And then what we are doing is we're branching out now into specific topics. Like I'm doing my every first Tuesday of the month, I'm doing one on Islam. Then we're doing one softy one on a first Monday of the month. So we're doing different things on different topics, all around atheism. So we're also looking at Christianity, absolutely, but also on Islam, and we had a Buddhist on the last week. So people come in and talk about various aspects.
Well, what I'll do for any German speakers that are listening to this, I'll put a link for Atheismus TV.
Well, we have Atheism TV, and then my private channel, of course, is Stefan Kees, where I am now doing a refutation of this brochure that I'm sure everybody has seen, with the yellow pages and all the different things that Maurice Buquet put out. So
we're back to you see, oh dear, it's bad, isn't it? I mean, that we have to keep going over the same kind of
right
same territory. But
this is why I said I'm going to do this little brochure, because I was in a debate with some Shias, and this guy was constantly referring to this little pamphlet. And I couldn't believe it. So I said, okay, look, guys, I'm going to kill it once and for all, so that nobody in the German-speaking the apologists Dawa market can use this anymore. And now I'm doing it page by page by page, just putting, bringing in factual stuff and throwing it out. That's what I'm doing at the moment.
Well, look, I think we'll do a wrap up just of our thoughts on the video in a minute. But Rob, did you want to just tell us what you're doing? I know you were on Clubhouse. Did you want to give a shout out to where people can find you?
I thought he stopped.
No, well, I mean, I just chat informally. So I actually do it with a Christian friend of mine, as it happens. His name is Andrew R. It used to be called God Talk. It's now called Andrew's Room or Andrew R. And we do rooms on there. Primarily, that's Christian based. Sometimes there's Muslim channels on there or rooms that I pop into. Otherwise, it's on Discord in the politics and religion server. I'm not on there as much. So that's the only sort of places. I don't really do it online per se in this way like you do much anymore.
Okay, well, I mean, if you ever have a Muslim and maybe you want to do a debate, you'd be welcome to come onto my channel if you want Well, I'll try and be as neutral as I can be if you wanted to do it for YouTube audience. But
Rob has scorched the earth. There is no way that a Muslim will go and debate him.
I mean, I'd do it on your channel if we could get this lantern guy on. But I wouldn't do it in a formal way. That I'm not so much interested in. I'm interested in a back and forth discussion.
That's the claims you made. Like to host. Yeah, I'd agree.
Or I'll present an argument for atheism or whatever the case is. But even if I did that prior to me doing that, I'd want to get that he accepts certain presuppositions that I think most theists widely accept. Then I'll present the argument. What I don't want to do is present arguments if they've got some idiosyncratic notion of God or good or whatever the case is. That's not going to work. So I always ask pre-qualifying questions that I think most people accept. And once they do that, then I can present an argument. Otherwise, I'll challenge all the sort of things that he said here or that we haven't talked about in this video. So that's the only sort of time. But I wouldn't do it where it's moderated opening statements and rebuttals and all that sort of stuff. That's just too formal and allows people to escape the gaps. And I don't want that to happen.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and yeah, that's the kind of thing that I would host. Would just be a more informal discussion where people can kind of interrupt if somebody's doing a gish gallop or anything like that. So,
make it a dialogue, yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, let's just briefly return to the video then. I mean, in summary, I was actually a little bit disappointed going back over it because there were elements that didn't come up, unfortunately. So maybe if I find another video, we can do that. I mean, I'm thinking particularly there are elements like there are certain kinds of people for whom this life as a test doesn't actually apply to. So if you've got limited mental capacity, if you've never kind of had exposure to Islam, and there's 2 or 3 other categories. Well, if you die as a child, that kind of thing, where the life as a test doesn't work. And so I think there's another contradiction there, that if life is a test for everyone, then that obviously doesn't work, because there are all these categories that don't fit into that. But in terms of the video itself, I think it was another poor display, as it always is from the apologist. I think the 2 major elements covered are life as a test in terms of worshipping God, which I think the idea that that knowing for sure that God does exist, they claimed that would invalidate the test. I don't think he showed that. I think if anything, it makes the test fairer to know whether you're going to worship. And then the second element is the suffering you go through during life. And I think, Rob, you in particular covered that brilliantly in terms of it's just it's really, you really should be looking to get the worst kind of experience in life if you were going to be consistent with this life as a test. And yet no Muslim on this earth actually acts that way, so it seems to be contradictory. So that's kind of how I would summarize it. So I don't know who wants to go first and give their thoughts summarizing.
Rob,
Go
go.
ahead, Stops. Oh.
Alphabetical, R before S.
Yeah, so I think what we heard was like a fast-talking guy that sounds very confident, made a lot of claims, didn't back them up. And I think that, for me, overall is the biggest concern I have. But that's not unusual, as we've got lots of experience with Muslims making claims that they can't back up. But as I said, the life as a test, I think, is massively problematic to them. But I ask it in the way that I say, right? I say, how do you understand life to be a test? What do you mean by being a test, etc., etc.? I want to get out of them that there is suffering. It's suffering that people do not choose to have happen to them. And that part of this test, part of the explanation of this test is an answer to what appears to be the disparity between different lives lived in the world that we see. And once that happens, then we can go forward and show, because what they're always praying for and whatever they're doing is to avoid all of the suffering and all of the the elements of the test that supposedly make this test so impressive. Because if it was impressive, they'd all be going through a lot more, because that will guarantee them, or at least give them a very high probability of an eternity of greater rewards in heaven, which, if you take the Pascal wager, is always going to be better than the limited amount of suffering and so forth that you go through in this world, where you have an eternity of rewards that far outweigh this in any metric that you could possibly imagine. It's always going to be better. So I think that's the main thing. So the whole test there, I think the lady asked some good questions. I don't think, though, that she would be able to repeat back what she found was helpful or why. And that's what I always am interested in, because the apologists they've got a script. They'll just run their mouth off and whatever, unless they're under pressure from, like myself, you or Stops, then it makes it a bit harder. But I'm always interested in people that sort of nod along and go, wow, that was great. And I used to do that in the text chat and ask them, what was so good? And of course, you couldn't get anything substantive. So what I noticed is these people are like in a trance, they're hypnotized and they're nodding along. But when you interrupt that and you say, hey, what was it that you found so impressive? They can't articulate it. So I think overall, yeah, I think I would be interested in chatting to this fella, but it has to be done under controlled conditions, because he's a bit of a runaway, like a Energizer battery. So you've got to slow him down and just unpack things very slowly to show him and everybody else what's actually going on and how vacuous the claims actually are.
Yeah, and I think you'd have difficulty, because just like the rest of them, he doesn't want to come out of his safe space. He doesn't want to come to even a neutral platform, not even, say somewhere like Modern Day Debates. I very much doubt you'd find him on there. They like to hide in their little echo chamber. But Stopsamming, please give us your summarizing thoughts.
Well, Rob hasn't actually left me anything to do or to say. I just found it disingenuous. I found it dishonest. I found that he's totally missed the topic, and that he was unable to come up with any coherent justification for the claim that there is such a thing as a test. So,
yeah,
banal and platitudes, and nothing special, nothing challenging, nothing intellectually, anything. It's just like he's got his 2 brain cells, and that's all he's used to using.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable summary. Well, I think we've done a pretty good job deconstructing all of this. So I'm going to say thank you to Stop Spamming and Rob. I'm so glad we finally got this where you've both come on live on my channel at the same time. It's been fantastic. I always love it when you guys come to visit. I want to thank everybody in the chat who has left comments. I want to thank Nick for the donation. That's very kind of you. I'm sure we will do another live stream at some point in the future. It's always an open-ended invitation to you guys. And unless you've got anything else, I think I'll bring this to a close. Yeah, that's it, everyone. So, I love the dancing. I've really got to get one of these animated things. They're brilliant. So good. So, yes, thank you, Rob. Thank you, Stops. Thank you, the audience. And I will say good night.
Good night. Thank you.